Hello, my name is Craig Hill and I'm the Dean here at Perkins School of Theology. I'm delighted that you're considering the possibility of becoming a student here at Perkins. I realize for many of you this period of discernment goes beyond just where you'll study or even what you'll study, but it has to do with your vocation, your calling. To what exactly is it that you're being called in ministry? I'd like to say just a few things about all that I hope will help you, speaking generally and then specifically with reference to Perkins. First, I think it's important to realize that ministry is, above all, a calling, not a career. A calling, not a career. It's not focused on ourselves, not so much focused on our future, but on giving ourselves to something larger than ourselves. One of the wonderful things about that is it's always possible to do that. There is no one or nothing in the world that can keep you from fulfilling your calling. If your calling is to spread the love of God, to advance God's reign, to serve others, to serve the world, nothing can stop you from doing that and being successful at that. The Apostle Paul didn't cease being an apostle when he was in prison. In fact, he did some of his best work in prison. So the exciting news is that this is an open door to service at which you cannot fail if in fact that is your goal and that is your purpose. As to the how and the where, I want to ask you to leave room for God to surprise you. There's a wonderful verse in James 4:13-15 rather, about this. It says, "Come now, you who say, well, I'm going to go to such and such a town and I'm going to settle in there for a year or so and make a profit. Yet you don't know what tomorrow will bring. Instead, you ought to say, well, if God wills it, we're going to do this or do that." That's been my experience over the past 30 years or so. Very little of what I've done was actually what I planned to do. God opened other doors. God had other plans for me. We can't control our opportunities. What we can control is our preparation. And if we are prepared, if you do the things you have to do now to prepare yourself to be of service in the world, you will succeed and the right opportunities will open for you. Now, that preparation involving theological education, of course, involves the gaining of some knowledge. You want to know who Paul was. You want to know a lot more than that, I hope, about the Bible, about church history and theology and so forth. It involves gaining some skills. If you're in a local church as a preacher, you should be able to preach. You should be able to counsel. There are a lot of very skill-oriented things that you need to pick up on while in theological school. But you also need, in this period, to continue to build character and to grow in faith. Because the kind of life that will be joyous and fruitful in a life of service involves a certain character and a certain kind of faith. We have as our tagline here, called to serve, empowered to lead. Called to serve and empowered to lead. And both of those things have to go together, I think, in full Christian ministry. Knowledge and skill can empower you to a certain extent. They're necessary. But faith and character are what it takes to lead as a servant in the image of Christ. So what about Perkins specifically? Well, I've worked at 3 other theological schools in my life. They're all good. They all have their strengths. There are a number of schools that have an outstanding faculty, excellent facilities, even world-class library. Perkins has all that. It's not the only school that has those things. So what is it that's distinctive about Perkins among leading theological schools? Well, let me just highlight 2 things. A lot of other things I could mention. If you come to campus, we can talk about other things. But let me mention 2 things. One is the culture of the institution. There's a lot of emphasis here on community. There's a lot of emphasis here on the fact that as servants we are called to love each other. In a highly polarized world, Perkins is one of those very rare and important places where you can actually come together with people with whom you disagree and actually learn from each other, learn to get along. The standard Jesus left us with is not tolerate each other. It's not even be civil to each other. It's to love each other. This is a place where we can come together as a community in Christ and learn from each other across differences, across boundaries. And that's critically important. And that unfortunately, fewer and fewer places you can do that in this world. And we need the kind of leaders who can do those things, who can lead across boundaries, who can understand people with whom they fundamentally disagree. So that's part of the culture of this institution that I think is very important. The other thing I'd want to highlight is context. We are embedded in a university. We're not the only theological school by any means to do that. But I think this is different here. SMU, the university of which we're a part, is uncommonly open to the theological school being fully integrated within the whole university. This past year, for the first time, we created a concentration for our students at the business school, just a couple blocks away from where I'm speaking, in church and nonprofit management. Right next door to us is the Meadows School of the Arts. We're creating new initiatives there. We have a new one this last year in social innovation and nonprofit engagement. I tell students who are coming here that if you come to Perkins, you're coming to SMU. There are a tremendous range of opportunities available for you. Theology, I'm a Bible scholar, I'm a New Testament scholar professionally. So when I think about thinking theologically, of course, the Bible is primary. But the task of theology, of doing theology, is about integrating all human knowledge together in a coherent way to create a worldview and an understanding of God that makes sense of not just the Bible, but of all sorts of other things, of anthropology and cosmology and so on, even things like the arts and as well as sciences. How do you put that together as a whole is your theological understanding of the world. And so you want to be part of a larger university, not simply a theological school, and SMU gives you that option, I think in quite a remarkable and unique way. The other thing about context is the context of Dallas-Fort Worth and of Houston, in the Houston-Galveston area. I don't know of anywhere else in the United States where there are more exciting, interesting, entrepreneurial ministries as there are here in this area. Whatever kind of ministry it is you're interested in or think you might be interested in, there is someone in this area doing it incredibly well. And that's tremendously important. I often say that yes, there is a lot of wisdom and knowledge within the theological school that needs to be out in the church. There's an awful lot of wisdom and practical knowledge in the church that needs to come into the theological school. And we are in a fabulous environment for that to happen. More and more we're structuring things around here to encourage students to take advantage of that, to gain models so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are so many opportunities for you around here, not just within the school, but within the broader community to enrich yourself, to gain a much fuller understanding of how and in what ways God might be leading you. I could say much more. I want you to know, though, that as we come to know you, you're in our prayers. We want you to discern what's right, whether or not that's coming to Perkins. Obviously, we'd like you to come here, but ultimately we want you to do what's right for you, for your ministry. Please be in touch with us, reach out to us. We'd love to help you in any way we can. And we want to support you in any way we can, whether you're here or whether you're not, because we know your ministry is important, and we want to support you throughout the remainder of your life as best we can. Thanks.